Okay, I want to start off with three thoughts. And the first is one I mentioned before, that when I think about Jackson Hole, I think about one community spanning 2 states and 3 counties. If the pass closes, if the canyon closes, we all feel it. And so when I think about shaping a future that complements our values, character, and resources, what I'm looking at is things tend to revolve around Jackson Hole, but I think we would be very short-sighted if we lost sight of the fact that we are one community spanning 2 states and 3 counties. The second thought I want to leave you with is you're going to hear a lot of talk, particularly from Chris and his Table 14 crew, about entrepreneurship. But if you look at the dictionary definition of entrepreneurship, usually with considerable initiative and risk, I would argue to you that Jackson Hole, the Tetons region, has been a region of entrepreneurship since the day that the first white people came over the pass or into the region, because the first ranchers, the first settlers here, they were doing nothing but taking huge risks in belief of a dream. And so I think that one thing that really has shaped our culture for the last 125 years or so is this sense of entrepreneurship. It may have had a different name and a different title, but I would say that if you look at the span of our history, we really are a region of entrepreneurs. But that leads into my third thought, the idea. But I think what's happened in the last 10 to 20 years is the nature of the entrepreneurship has changed. Certainly here, it's changed in other places too. And as I talk about on the next slide, I think that if we look at a simplified model of our economy, you can divide our economy here, our entrepreneurial economy, into 3 different characters. First, there are the independently wealthy people. There have been a number of those since the 1960s, that's as far back as the data go, but they're clearly an important part of our economy. The second is what I would call an intrapreneur, and there are different meanings of this word, but the way that I would like to use it in this context is businesses whose customers are local. They can be tourists, they can be residents, but what has really hallmarked the Jackson Hole Valley in this region up until, say, 15, 20 years ago is that all of the entrepreneurs that we had in our community were really focused on local customers, again, be they residents or tourists. What's changed in the last 15 years or so is what I'm calling extrapreneurs. And in this sense, what I mean by that term is businesses which have a customer base that's basically outside the valley. They may be doing a little bit of business here, but the entrepreneurial community is broken into 2 pieces, extrapreneurs and intrapreneurs. And I'd say that extrapreneur thing is something that's really changed in the last 15 years. Because the thing that distinguishes the independently wealthy and the extrapreneurs is that they could really be anywhere they want to be, and they've chosen to live in this region. So from that perspective, I would argue that our 20th century economy has really been this combination of intrapreneurs and the independently wealthy. But I would say that the 21st century economy in this region is really going to be shaped by a combination of those people who can live anywhere. And I think the key question for us is, what are we going to do in the next decades to come to really make it a place where people want to keep coming? So if you think about our future, I think that what's really important is thinking about what makes a place truly distinctive. So for instance, this is a picture of Central Park, and next we have a picture of some people recreating, in this case surfing, and finally, of course, people skiing. And you know, these are places that you would associate with certain places on Earth, or activities that you'd associate. But the thing about this is that Central Park is part of the largest cruise ship in the world right now, which is floating in the Caribbean as we speak. So you can go onto that cruise ship and go into a replica of Central Park. And of course that surfing is going on outside of Phoenix, and the skiing is going on in Dubai. And so I think that the question, if we start asking ourselves, what's really going to keep people around here? What makes us truly distinctive? And I'd say, in our case, what we really have to think about is, what is technology not going to allow to occur, be easily replicated anywhere? And I'd say there are 3 elements to that we have going in our favor. The first is our landscape, the second is our wildlife, and the third, finally, is our community character. And what attracts the tourists is those first two, and of course what attracts the locals is the first two plus the community character. And so again, as we start thinking about our future, what I would argue is the thing that will really determine what's going to keep people around here, what's going to make us increasingly successful, not just economically, but as a community as a whole, is going to be this question of how well do we integrate these 6 different pieces. Because they're all going to tie together, and the more closely we can do that, our tourism economy will do well, our non-tourism economy, our entrepreneurs, our extrapreneurs will continue to be an attractive place to live, will continue to be a place where people want to come to visit. So finally, I think that this generation's real opportunity, we've become too complex, too rich, too populated to really have people coming in like a Lone Ranger, whether it's Shane or John D. Rockefeller or even a Paul McAllister who's one man against, trying to put his imprint on the region. The challenge, and nobody's really figured out how anywhere else in the world how to do it really well, is how to take all these things and start working together as a collective. I think that's the real challenge that we as a community face, to try and figure out how to integrate these different pieces in a way that's going to make it attractive to entrepreneurs, extrapreneurs, the independently wealthy. I think that's the real challenge that we as a community face going forward. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Chris Hessler, who's talked about one way of we as a community can start thinking about what we do and how we go about doing it. So Chris, thank you.